Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? There we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. From the farm. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time, and tape delayed throughout the country. I want to thank Ron Gibson, who tirelessly has been posting this broadcast on YouTube, on the Ron Gibson channel, for years. Thank you so much, Ron Gibson. And I really like what you did about Walking Eagle. There's a post, if you go to the Ron Gibson channel, it's a 3-minute piece of me talking about Walking Eagle, the award that Barack Obama, or Barry Soetoro, as most people know him, received. And the Walking Eagle Award, as you may know, is, it's named because when an eagle is so full of it, he can no longer fly, and that eagle is referred to as Walking Eagle. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line 605-477-3249. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Vincent. Sounds to me like a dodo bird. Ew.
Well, I got this news article, and obviously it was a spoof, right? But it shows Barack Obama on stage, and there's an Indian in headdress there, and there's a whole bunch of people there, and obviously it's photoshopped. And he's receiving this award, and it's referred to as the Walking Eagle Award because, people who listen to this broadcast know that Barack Obama is in it for Barack Obama. And the rest of us, the heck with the rest of us, right? So, Walking Eagle, I guess, is how we will refer to him by his recently awarded Indian name. Rick, there was a massive ground beef recall. More than 12 million pounds. 12 million pounds. And it was from a company called JBS USA. JBS. So what you need to know, class, is that this massive recall, the U.S. Department of Agriculture says that the beef has been recalled 5.1 million pounds beyond the additional or the 6.9 million pounds that's been recalled prior 2 months ago because of risk of contamination with Salmonella Newport, a strain of the bacteria it's a common cause of food poisoning. Okay. And let's see if I can, they say the USDA's Food and Safety Inspection Service, FSIS, is concerned that some product may be frozen in consumers' freezers, and the agency said they have an update on their website, and that if you have any, you should throw it away or return it to the place of purchase, and I think you should. So among the hundreds of products on the list are the ground beef sold at Sam's Club, and in more than 24 states, and Walmart in Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, and Texas. Some products were packaged with the brand names Kroger, Cedar River Farms, Natural Beef, and Gourmet Burger. So what you can do is go to the internet and look up recall for beef and see if your beef has been recalled. and then I would bring it back. If you can. If you can't, bring back the label and the article and demand your money back. And I think that we consumers need to do that. We need to take action, and when we've been cheated, lied to, and fraud has been perpetrated on us, make sure you do whatever you can to recover financially, get your money back, and make sure others know as well. And then maybe, just maybe, if we hurt these perpetrators of these crimes in their pocket enough, they'll do a better job and maybe hurt us less. Any comments, Rick Miller?
Well, yeah, this is a reflection today. Look at what's happening to the stock markets this morning. We are about to hit a brick wall. I mean, seriously speaking, and nobody is talking about it in extent on terms of main news, and nobody's prepared. And the beef recall is just typical of the so-called just-in-time delivery systems. When you buy your beef from Argentina or China, it has to get shipped, which has other expenses. And so what you're doing is paying what we call economy of scale. Now, the reason China owns 50% of Grants Pass, like we discussed last week, was because of Walmart, Harbor Freight, and the rest of it. I can't even buy a tool as cheaply as I can buy. But when I went to the dollar store and I get a can opener, I have now bought 3 different can openers that I've just thrown away. They don't work. That's $3, not a big deal, of can openers in my home that don't work. I cannot ever remember even a simple stripped down can opener that didn't open the can. What's happening? Well, the can isn't being made quite as precision as it used to be. The tool that locks down and crimps is off center because of quality control. Quality assurance is a different kind of thing. And marketing used to include cheapest and best buy, where you bought one can opener and it lasted you the rest of your life. That doesn't exist anymore. We've talked about this repeatedly on our show together, but here we are now having it hit us face in. If you bought your beef from local resources, the money would have stayed in the community instead of leaving the community. There would have been absolutely no problem with the beef because it didn't need refrigeration.
And there's something called shipping. There's something called shipping
You have a
fever.
cargo container, and let's say something happens with one of the pumps. It goes out at sea. You think he's going to say anything?
Right. And even just moving cows from a farm to the sale barn. Let's say it's a half-hour ride.
We could talk about, what the cow must be going through and the kinds of weird chemistry being released. That was Temple Grandin. But here we are at the end of days, and we're all, the beef recall. It's like, hey, children, over here, ISIS is beheading a bunch of, over here, children, look. We're not addressing the issues. We're being led, and it's like in the news, we got to return my beef. Of course you've got to return your beef. Look where it came from. What did you expect? I mean, I cannot. Cheapest is not ever best, and that's all we have now. We have 5 instead of one place where you got your cheapest. That was Walmart. Now you got Costco, you got the Winco, they're all WWO, and I cannot stress the need to know your neighbor, to need to know the person next door to you. How many people know the person that lives next door to you? Even you, Vincent, don't really know your neighbors. It's not like it used to be.
Well, heck, my neighbor doesn't know me so well that when I was running for the electric cooperative director's position, he didn't know what to do. I mean, we've only been neighbors for, let's say, 7 years. We wave each other on the road.
Man,
yeah, and,
you know, yeah. And the whole thing is
and
crazy.
I've talked to him. Our fence is common, between our property and his property. Sometimes when his animals get out, through the fence, we fix it, and vice versa. So, I mean, I know this guy, but when it came time to asking him to consider putting my name on a petition to run for the electric cooperative to lower his electric bill and mine, he didn't know what to do. So you're right. And when we lived in a neighborhood that was built in the 1940s on the East Coast, we lived there, let's say, easily 10 plus years. And the neighbors that joined our property, there were six properties that joined to the left, to the right, and then the back, 6 properties, and we only knew half of the people who lived in the houses. I don't think we ever met the family that lived right behind our house. So if you look at our backyard, there's only like a third or a half an acre. It wasn't very big. The property right behind our house, 200 feet away, we never met them. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can. I've got criminals all around me. When I went down to meet my neighbors, I've been here, 3 years in this home, and I decided I was going to go down the hill and meet the people down below that used to have the same property as mine when the parents owned the house, and they subdivided it with their boy that ended up going to federal prison. His partners took over. When I went down to meet him, and I've known their partner for more than 20 years, they pulled guns. They were afraid of me. They didn't know who I was. And yet I've known the family that I'm renting the house from for more than 20 years. It's 20 years. It's crazy. And it's getting worse because our children are being taught different sets of values. When I was a boy, you were afraid to have sex because you were afraid you couldn't go to college. You might get her pregnant. There was no such thing as safe sex. And when you hanky-panked, you were at risk. Today, who cares? And the youngness of it, how did the Bitterroot, if they're old enough to bleed, they're old enough for me. Or if they're old enough to pee, they're old enough for me. This is craziness. And our value systems are now completely gone, and there's nobody. Old used to be respected. We've lost all.
Well, I thought Larry Nichols was on the air with us, and he said that he was part of the Clinton kitchen cabinet. He told the story about how Bill Clinton, liked women a lot. And he said that he liked them, all kinds of women. And that he was following up on the belief that Bill Clinton had sex with this McDonald's restaurant manager. And he said that, in order to prove this, you're going to have to give us some information about his genitalia. And, she didn't know what that was. And so he explained it. And she said, he had this little itty-bitty, and it hooked to one side. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is Bill Clinton probably wants to know why it was little itty-bitty, because according to the dailymail.co.uk, men could end up with their sex organs about a half-inch shorter than usual if their parents were exposed to high levels of a chemical used in non-stick frying pans. We're talking about PFCs. And so it can interfere with development, normal development. And so it affects the unborn child in the womb, researchers say. So be careful of Teflon. And these are chemicals that are also found in waterproofing of clothing and grease-proof packaging for food. And they get into our bloodstream and reduce testosterone levels. Rick, have you heard of this before discussing it just now?
Not in its regard to sex or your tool. No. I remember when Teflon was of concern and my camping equipment never carried it anymore, even though it was really nice to not have sticky food in the middle of the wilderness when you were camping. That's a long time ago. So, no, I don't know much about that. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, here's the question. So if Teflon is so sticky that the items that you cook in it don't stick, how does Teflon stick to the substrate or the pan that the Teflon is applied to? So obviously, if the food won't stick to it, yes. So obviously we're eating it. And class, if you're like just about everybody else and you look at these Teflon pans and you see these little nicks where the Teflon was, and you see little absent parts of Teflon coating, and you wonder, geez, look at that. I guess maybe we're going to have to get a new one. Well, where did all that Teflon go? I think it went down the hatch when you're eating.
Yeah, but don't worry. We'll put it in Dorito corn chips now so you can make sure you get it.
Well, that's another thing. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, you're finding these chemistries in everything now.
Right. So what you're saying is that big kettle that is at that food factory where they make extruded food, are they concerned that, well, hey, didn't this great big 55-gallon kettle, didn't it used to have Teflon coating? Huh. Well, I guess it's all gone, but that's okay. We'll just keep using it. Where did all that go? And do these people who work at these food processing plants, are they really trained in chemistry? Do they really know what's going on? I hardly think so. So I just
on a local level, they require you to use stainless steel if you're going to put a kitchen in to prepare food for the food co-op or whatever you're doing. You know, I'm going to say that your farmer's market and your local market that carries local produce is the place where you should be doing your business, because even though it might be 20% more expensive, that 20% does not leave the area and it means that you will benefit from it, whereas cheapest is not, and you lose more even though you're spending less. And you won't notice it for the first 2 years, but your health, your standard of living, everything, boom.
Let's talk a little bit more about that when we come back from the bottom of the hour news and commercial announcements. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and we're talking about farmers markets. And there was a video on the internet. If you want to watch it, all you have to do is just type in your search engine, farmers market, lies. And you'll find out that some farmers don't grow what they say they're growing. And they'll have signs up that say, locally grown, or, Joe Doak's farm, that kind of thing. And what we found out in this video that was done in Canada is that if you see uniformity, like all the apples are the same size, all the bell peppers are the same size, all the lettuce is the same size, it's probably not grown locally. And then what you do is you say, you look at it and ask the farmer if he grew it. And then look behind, the tent, if you will, and see if there are crates that say, Mexico or California. And so you may be paying extra for something that you believe you're getting, like local produce, and you may not. And it's not all the farmers that are doing this. It's just a few that have spoiled it for everybody else, and they need to be driven out. They need to be shamed. They need to be exposed. Because just because someone's a farmer doesn't mean he or she is honest. And you'll see that if you watch the video. So ask questions and go look. And when Mrs. Finelli goes to buy produce, she'll ask the produce manager, where is this grown? Can I see the crate it came in? Can I see the crate it came in? And if they say no, then don't buy it. And after a while, you'll learn whether you can trust them or not, that particular store. So I just wanted to mention that. Rick, do you have any comments?
I'd like to see a local stock exchange implemented with the farmers markets. If you have 20 growers, each one of them has different inventories. Imagine a PERT sheet each week published on who's got what in the neighborhood.
I agree with that.
So I've written that as a grant. If anybody would like to go peddle it, it's a BBC, an old bulletin board concept that would be for local markets and the local supermarkets using restaurants and trade. And a small place like where you live, Vincent, it would be perfect because I'm guessing there are at least 20 growers in your area. About maybe 12.
Yeah, there probably are, about that many. Mm-hmm.
And
they're pretty much everyone's a farmer in terms of cows.
Okay, so then
growing cows around here.
So this one over here, this one had just had calves, and this one over here just had some piglets. And over here, he put in extra tomatoes that he should never cukes. And imagine a stock exchange that's talking about who's got what. It's a local thing on your computer instead of this creepy bar line down below where they're talking about the Houston funeral and stock slide to open and Golden Globes. Who cares? I mean, who cares anymore? That's craziness to be into gladiator sports like Rome, watching the football game on Sunday, rather than visiting a neighbor and getting to know somebody that will most likely be the person that saves your life.
There's a post on Zero Hedge that says patriotism on the decline. And here are some other findings. About half of those surveyed believe that the United States is both racist and sexist. The United States. 46% of younger Americans do not believe that America is the greatest country in the world. I wonder which one they think is the greatest. 14% of millennials believe that America was never a great country and never will be. Well, obviously, they didn't live in the 50s and the 60s. 46% of younger Americans think that America is more racist than other countries. I wonder which ones we are more racist than. And this one is absolutely. Here's the one that is jaw-dropping. 44% of younger Americans think that former President Walking Eagle had a bigger impact on the United States than George Washington. How is that possible? How could Walking Eagle have a bigger impact than George Washington, one of the founders of the United States? Walking Eagle is one of those guys who has presided over the unlawful, warrantless spying on just about all Americans. Walking Eagle. He's the guy that did that. He's the guy that he broke a lot of laws. And yet, 44% of younger Americans who were involved in this survey think that Barack Obama had a bigger impact on the United States than George Washington. That's just jaw-dropping. How is that possible? Well, I guess it's possible when you think about this. 16 U.S. Postal Service workers. Now, Rick, you like the Postal Service in that you think that it's important, it's mandated in the Constitution, and that it's one of those few organizations that we think is probably okay. Well, 16 U.S. Postal Service workers are charged with accepting bribes. Now, how can you bribe a U.S. Postal Service worker? How is that possible? What would you bribe one of them to do? Now, it's not like they don't make a lot of money because a lot of them are unionized and they make a lot of money. considering that we live in a small hamlet of 100 people and the postmaster makes about $77K a year, okay, plus retirement benefits. Well, 16 U.S. Postal Service workers are charged with accepting bribes to deliver cocaine after the feds posed as drug traffickers in a sting operation. That was in Atlanta, and they've been sentenced to federal prison for accepting bribes to deliver cocaine. Some of these postal workers were as easy to bribe as just $250 would do it. $250 would bribe some of these postal workers. Can you imagine? The U.S. Postal Service delivering drugs. And they knew it.
That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to change my addresses, my return addresses, because my packages are no longer being opened up in Seattle because I changed my return address. There was something going on in Seattle. The Postal Service was about to set up a sting when it stopped. They caught that one sting where they put a transmitter on the letter that when it was opened, and they found the individual that did that up in Michigan. There are sorting centers in Seattle and Lexington that are, if you're sending something out of Oregon to, let's say, California, before it goes to California, it goes up to Seattle for sorting. These are the places where the centralized control systems fall apart and where bribery, like with things like with Amazon out of Seattle, is where it falls apart. Seattle used to be a really cool place to live. I wouldn't touch it now with a 10-foot pole. It's worse than L.A. And that's me saying it that grew up in Seattle. You should all be embarrassed. And I remember the concept of gender and the way they're trying to force concepts on us that are so completely different than the way when I was raised as a boy. A woman held out sex for, something better in marriage. And as a male, even though I was horny, I respected that. Where's that value? I remember these concepts.
All right, how about this? Yeah. Let me read some of the names of these USPS employees that were caught up in this sting operation. Arthur Ramus, that's Aurthamis. I'm probably not even saying it right. How do you pronounce Aurthamis? Middle initial O, and in last name Birch. How about this one? Kawana Rashan Champion. Kawana Rashun, middle name, Champion, last name. Lee Janelle Holt. Now, Lee is spelled Leea, or maybe it's Leah. Janelholt. How about this one? Shakeed, Shakeed, first name. Anila, Anilah, last name McGee. Okay? And if you look at, they've got a picture of one of these guys. And this guy he's got, well, it looks like he's a little bit balding in the front. He's got these braided things, and it looks like, I've got a mop that looks like that. And it, literally a mop. Yeah, and he's got these things hanging down.
It's a dread.
Okay. Well, there it is. Okay. And these are people who have been hired by the United States Postal Service. Now, I guess you can't have a dress code. You can't say, you know what? You can't have that mop. You have to have a nice haircut in order to be employed by the United States Postal Service.
Even in public school, when I was a kid, had those kinds of dress codes. Imagine where you went to parochial. I can't fathom what's happening in America to our children and their concept of values, where they don't care.
Yeah, you've got postal service workers throwing the mail in sewer drains because they don't feel like delivering it. Can you imagine that? RichardAllenMiller.com. Mark in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Rick.
Hey, good morning. I have a cool little book here, and you can go. I think you can still buy it. It's called Joshua's Long Day, and the guy who wrote it, it says right here, Charles A.L. Tootin. He said he was first lieutenant, 4th Artillery, professor of military sciences at Yale University. I think this book was written about 100 years ago, but he explains in here, and I have to read this. Is it all right if I can read this?
How long will it take?
It'll take about a minute.
Go ahead, sure.
But it says, if we can demonstrate the fact of Joshua's long day, it is clear evidence of the possibility of a shorter day and fulfillment of the Amos the prophet's prediction, which is timed to occur at the close of this age. And he goes on to talk about how fast the earth spins at 1,000 miles per hour. He talks about in here on page 87 and in page 88 and 89, he talks about influence by comets, and he talks about the earth and how it could actually flip on it. And he goes on in great detail. He says the company diagram clearly illustrates how this could take place while the earth continued its spinning. The temporary second motion given to the earth would not interfere with the effects produced by the continuation of the spin of the earth upon its own axis. And he goes on to explain how all this could happen, and it happened before during the time of Joshua, who was commander-in-chief of the army of Israel, who led the Israelites into the Promised Land. And he explains the same thing that happened then will happen again. I was just wondering if you could get this book, maybe it's by Destiny Publishers. He gets great detail about how all this stuff and how these comets too would have caused this magnetic pole to cause all these effects for this to actually happen.
That's a pole shift, and Dr. Bert Bolin, University of Stockholm in Sweden, Nobel Prize winner in predicting pole shifts, says we're due. And yes, that's me now saying you can count on it. It's already happening. Look at our weather.
Are you having headaches? Because I know those of us that are sensitive, you're not like are having headaches and have a nauseated feeling and stuff like that. And it's not due to anything with food or nothing. It's just, I think it's because of
the earth right now is being hammered with dark matter. What is dark matter? I have no clue. We understand less than 5% of the universe in terms of what we call normal matter. And I'm in the process of writing about that right now to finish up the non-local mind. But the earth right now, the sun, we don't circle the sun. We are in a helix trying to catch it as it's a missile through deep space. And that's the proper way of looking at it. That means that the sun is blocking or protecting us with a heliosphere, that it absorbs all the crap that it runs into. Right now, it's running into a region of deep space that is mostly dark matter. And the Earth, because the sun is in a solar minimum, it is not absorbing that at this moment. What's happening is it's going around it. Guess what just happened in Alaska? Just what happened in New Zealand. You can count on it.
I've got a comment for you, Mark. I've got a comment. I've mentioned for well over a week now that we've noticed that our animals are needy, and our dogs and our cats. And what we're finding out is they do not want to leave. Yes, they do not want to leave our side. They're concerned. They're worried. They want to be with us. If we're in the automotive shop and, on our farm, they're with us. If we walk outside, they follow us. If we're in bed, they climb in bed. We don't want them to, and we keep putting them out like every 15 seconds. But they are relentless. They do not want to be left without us. They're sleeping under our bed. Absolutely.
This is
That's
like
the point.
astrology and full moon. That when you have a full moon, people go crazy. That's the lunar thing. You can count on it with dark matter.
Did you want to hold, Mark?
Okay.
Okay. Mark in Illinois had a question and a comment, and he was talking about Joshua's Long Day, a book that he was reading. And I had a question, too, because it seems to me that when things are going really well and I'm happy, time is really fast. Time moves very quickly. And when I'm in pain, it seems to slow down. So the question, Rick, is does time change? Does it speed up and slow down?
Time isn't real. It's a duration of consciousness. It's not real. It's a concept we use to understand our universe. And that part is changing. That's why there's what they call an awakening, where people are realizing there's a spiritual world more than there is a physical world. There's a relationship. That's what they call awakening. And time and space were constructs from an older way of looking at reality. Today, instead of a quantum universe, we talk about it being holographic, where everything's in a point, including consciousness. We don't even know what consciousness is, except a type of micro, they call it the ORC model with Hameroff, where, you're basically seeking pleasure on a very primal level where this is comfortable and this is not. Those kinds of circuits have to do with resonant cavity oscillators, brain chemistry, and what you eat, and how and whom you feed. And you can change that. And the level of awareness of the relationship of one thing to another is becoming more. There's a spiritual book that everybody might want to start to read. It's an old Bible called the Kabbalion, and it's about the teachings of Hermes. And if you want a sense of it, we've been here before. Each time there is a connection of one epoch to the next with consciousness. What are you doing right now in terms of spiritual growth so that you can get out of here?
Mark, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I agree with that. And, I would encourage, I just want to read this Isaiah chapter 38, verses 7 and 8. It says, "And this shall be a sign unto thee from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he has spoken. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backwards. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down." And that's a time, that's a shift. But, I would encourage people to do this. If you keep the biblical law of eating what God says to eat and not eating what he says not to eat, it will raise your it will raise your body up to a higher vibration, to a higher frequency, because that's the whole point of obeying God's law, his word, because it brings your body into a higher level of frequency.
Higher level of resolution of information. That is what we're all saying. Different words, the same construct. You're becoming closer to the source.
Yeah.
So, Rick, what do you think about what Mark asked? The headaches, the not feeling well, the animals that I've talked about.
This is we used to and you're in my generation.
There's one more piece. There's one more piece to it.
Yeah.
Just about everybody I know, regardless of where they are in the country, is tired, worn out, tired, is having trouble starting, is having trouble staying on task.
These are biorhythms. We had this previously. What we're noticing are the inner landscape of our behavior. And the behavior and belief systems are arbitrary. And so you should, as you notice these headaches and your relationship to us going through a dark matter and what's going on with stock exchange, all of these things are storyboards. and you're complex. You have more than one story going on. Each one has an ending. Do you like the way that myth ends, like Psyche at the Well of Souls? If you, that's another book I'm writing, and just in that area, looking at the relationship of metaphor in your life. That's called tarot. That's why advanced physics is now moving toward the fields of magic, of imagination, and what is possible. It's going to be an exciting period. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It could be, getting back home. We are we're all about to go through it.
Right now, the Dow is down minus 666.
Yeah, I know. It goes downhill from there, man. Everything is in metaphor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had another question, and Mark, you may find this question interesting as well. Years ago, I remember reading about the Earth and these magnetic lines in the oceans, and you can see them. You can see these magnetic lines that indicate shifts of the poles, and they are visible. I mean, they're physically visible. And then I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the North Pole, the South Pole, the magnetic properties of the Earth, and then I was thinking about the oceans. And last week we just briefly touched on this. So the oceans have salt and other minerals and elements in the water in the oceans. And because of the electrolyte, if you will, of the salt water in the ocean, there's the potential to generate electricity. And how much electricity can you generate if you just had a mason jar with a strip of zinc and a strip of copper, and you separated that strip of copper and zinc by some amount, let's say we'll call it a half an inch, and you added salt water, and it could be just table salt, it could be salt water from the ocean, it could be pink salt, whatever kind of salt you want, you'll be able to generate about 1 volt of electricity. And then there's another part to this, and that is if you have some moist ground, like on our farm, like, either after a rain, but not a desert, but if you have some moisture in the ground, and you drive in a metal rod into the ground, let's say it's 3 feet long, 4 feet long, 6 feet long, you drive it into the ground, and then a distance from that, let's say 2 feet, you drive in another rod, a metal rod, but a different metal. So let's say the first rod is iron, and the second rod is aluminum or copper. You can literally measure the electricity that is generated between those two dissimilar metal rods. So that
Casimir effect. That's the Casimir effect.
So here's the
last chapter in the non-local mind book I'm writing. That is where cold fusion occurs. The Earth can be seen as a plasma, and it's the plasma universe model that seemingly fits all the data that we understand today. And it allows you to move to another level with emotional plane and then the intellectual. Archetypal plane, we're all going to get there, because if people like me are there, it means I am you and you are me.
So here's where I'm going with this. I believe, I haven't proven this, but let's say I went to a salvage yard and I bought some rebar. And rebar is just an iron rod that's used to reinforce concrete, reinforcing bar, rebar. Let's say it's half an inch thick or 3/8 of an inch thick or 5/8, whatever I decide. And let's say I get 4 foot long lengths of it. And I separate them every 2 feet with some other metal. Let's say, as I mentioned before, aluminum. And I run these rods in series. So I have iron to aluminum, aluminum to iron, and so forth. And let's say I get 10 of them. I believe that I would generate, let's make it 15 of them. 16, make an even number, has to be an even number. 16 of them. And I put them in series. I believe that I could charge a lead acid battery with that. I believe I could take the electricity from that lead acid battery and use it to run LED 12-volt lighting in the house. I believe I could do that. And I believe that if I put these rods in a ditch-like arrangement where I could have water dripping, condensation dripping off the roof at night, into this ditch to keep these damp, I would have a forever battery.
Did you already do
of
that?
These cells. I have not done it in a battery format. I've tested it with just one cell, but I have not done it in a battery format. A battery is a collection of cells. So, yeah, and just to be clear, those things that you buy for your flashlight, if you had an old flashlight and it had D cells, they're not batteries. They're cells. So it's a dry cell, a D cell, a C cell, a double A, a triple A. Those are cells. When you put cells together, you form a battery of cells. And a car battery is a collection of 6 separate cells put in series to make a battery. So we use the term incorrectly, cells and batteries. But what I'm talking about is taking cells, put them together, and make a battery, charge the battery with, we'll call it an earth battery, and I think it would last forever. As long as it wasn't physical damage.
Well, it's a capacitor. That's what you're doing. You're building.
Yeah, that's right. Going further from there, if that's true, and I believe it is, and since the ocean's salt level keeps changing, are we changing the battery of the planet to the point where we could destroy our weather? That's the next question. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. If you'd like to peruse his offerings, his books, his writings, that's the place to go. And so Rick and Mark, Rick first, what are your thoughts about the Earth being a battery, a collection of cells through the Earth, through the water? And we know that an electric current is generated when water flows through salty ocean water flows through a magnetic field. So we have all of these cells, large cells. I'm talking about the oceans of the world.
There's more going on here. That's one way of looking at things, and it's arbitrary. That's what they call a theory. And when you have a theory like that, it opens certain doors of what's going to happen, gives you a sense of predictability, of getting out beyond space and time. That's what's basically happening. Yes, the Earth is a giant battery. That concept was Nikola Tesla. And so, all these concepts are valid. If you go in this direction, these are the realities that are available. Each one has disadvantages. It's like a double-edged sword because that's what man does. He polarizes everything. And when I say that, God in my universe is not at war with anything. It runs everything in terms of, conflict. Man is, when I look at your house, I see only the front of it. I'm not capable of seeing the front and the back at the same time. That is what I would describe as something I can't do that God can. Beyond me. I can't go there. That kind of thing. And that's why when someone says, is the house white or brown? The correct answer is yes. Yes, the Earth can be seen as a battery. Now, if you choose to look at the Earth as a battery, what happens next is a whole bunch of things open up to you, possibilities in terms of energy and benefit, health, your relationship to self.
I remember taking some tests.
You can power your house. LEDs are the way to do it because they don't burn hot. Hot means you're wasting energy. The fact that it's white light, that's great. But where's the rest of the energy going? How efficient is it? Not very, because it's hot. You can't even touch it. And yet an LED is cool.
I remember taking some tests when I was in elementary school, and some of the tests were multiple choice, and it would be A, B, C, D, E, and it would be the correct answer is A or B or C, or none of the above or all of the above. And I did terribly on those because I could find reasons why it could be all of the above, but that wasn't the right answer according to, the...
Well, then that's how they were programming you. That's how they program you from your wild ability of making you unique and standardizing you as one size fits all. Yeah, they were public schools. You went to parochial, though, and I thought they...
Yeah, I did. I went to an all-boys Catholic Jesuit-taught high school. And it was... Well, it wasn't uniforms. It was suits. You had to, you could, you weren't all dressed alike, but you did have to wear a jacket, a sports coat, like a white shirt, a tie. You had to wear socks that were dress socks. You had to wear dress shoes. You had to have a belt on. You had to have your hair cut. You had to bathe. And, if you didn't do all those things.
You had nuns.
Well, we had brothers. And one of them was a Golden Gloves boxer. And if you disagreed, well, you could figure out who was right in the gym. You'd put a pair of boxing gloves on, and you'd figure out who was right. And he was always right.
Yeah, might makes right. Yeah, that's right, man. Bullies all. Well, the thing is, the Earth, because it's like this is a nice direction for sovereignty possibility of how you can heat your home with the current demand that you need for electricity, because everything around you, from your heating elements to your heater, all using juice.
And at this time on December 6th at 10:34 a.m. Central Time, the Dow is down 735. A few minutes ago, I reported it was down 666. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about a Dow theory that I wrote a paper on back in my university days, back in the 70s, about predicting the Dow. But, Mark, you had one more question?
Yeah, I'll be real quick. Thank you. Rick made a comment about the front side and the back side of the house, and you asked me about about energy and the sea. I believe there's energy in the sand, and because God said He'll make His people Israel. Told Abraham that I'll make you like the sand of the sea, your seed like the sand of the sea, a multitude, and your seed, the seed of Isaac, will be like the stars of the heavens. I just wanted to read this real quick. It says, the rotary motion of the stars would change as the poles began to sweep the entire circle of the heavens, and the star groupings and constellations never before seen at the poles would come into full view until the end of the 23rd and 1/3 hours. The stars would again be seen, which have for centuries appeared above the poles. So that, I believe, is the heavens, and I believe the sand of the sea actually has energy in it. And that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate it, you guys, and thank you. Have a good day.
Mark, thank you very much. Okay, well, sand obviously has energy because what we learned in science class in elementary school, that we've got atoms that have electrons, and the electrons are flying around in orbit, so there's energy right there, at the atomic level. Isn't that correct, Rick?
I would say so. It's all of it's true. That's why we're studying magic as an advanced form of physics, because the universe has just added dimensions of possibilities.
Many years ago, I used to listen to a man who is no longer with us. He's passed away. I believe, in my mind, he was the finest broadcaster ever, period. Number one, Art Bell. And many of the components of USA Prepares are using Art Bell's model. Long discussions, long answers, free speech. And it came from Art Bell. I didn't invent it. I used to love to listen to him. He had the most wonderful guests, as he would call them. And one of them was a guy by the name of Bob Lazar, Lazar. Well, Bob Lazar was exposed to the Area 51 world, and he's still being monitored by authorities 30 years after he went on television. And he said that he worked with alien spacecraft in a secret U.S. government project. And so this is available if you want to read it on dailymail.co.uk. It says Bob Lazar first hit the headlines in 1989 when he told a Las Vegas television station that 9 alien spacecraft were being tested and analyzed in Nevada by U.S. scientists. Lazar said he worked to help reverse engineer the flying discs, which used technology that had not yet been discovered or invented by humans. Scientists said that he had been threatened about coming forward, but felt the public should know. He was highly criticized, and many claims were debunked. Well, filmmaker Jeremy Corbell was just 13 when Lazar's extraordinary statements hit the airwaves, and he's been fascinated by UFOs and Lazar ever since. Corbell's new documentary, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers, traces Lazar's path since 1989. He now runs a science equipment lab in Michigan. Bob Lazar, stands by his assertions and says they changed the trajectory of his life, and for the most part in negative ways, and he probably wouldn't speak out again. Do you remember the name Bob Lazar?
Are you talking to me? Yes, I do know Bob. I'm in the 70s. He was in the 80s. Back in the 70s, it was psychic discoveries, and we were opening up to the whole possibility of Montauk and the possibilities of dimensional physics. It was brand new then. Holograms were Gabriel. He got Nobel Prize working for old man DuPont. And I was there, and we knew about aliens, but we were more concerned about Russia. Now, today, Boeing has a magnetic monopole. They have flying discs. Boeing already is displaying them. There they are. Was that reverse engineered? I don't know. I can tell you that I have seen things that were not from humans. I personally, in my own studies, I did a piece of material that was 100 times stronger than diamond. I did that at the University of Chicago. We didn't have that technology back then. Today, we would call that fullerenes. Now, there it was. The Germans had a dome. They had a flying craft. There were no evidences of Foo fighters out of Antarctica with the Russian. It's historically there's something else going on, and whether it's an aliens or it's something that we haven't even described yet, I don't know. I have personally met krill at Broom Lake, level 8. I did that. I have no memory. I can't get there from here. It happened. Here's the documents. The problem is dealing with God or God-like entities. Of course, they can exist. How could they not? Imagination is reality. Now, there is divine right and choice. That's what made us God's favorite. And so what we have now is what always has been change. And we have an opportunity and to evolve, to go to another level of awareness if we so choose to do so. And in my humble opinion, I think we're going to do that because I'm already starting to be there. And if I'm there, that means mankind's got it. I'm just the lead scout. I'm not anything big deal. We're all in the same boat and it has nothing to do with time. So it's happening all around us. We're noticing it. We don't know quite what to do with it yet. That is the distinction in terms of how to use a wound. Why you're here, what makes you different than me. I don't have the answers, but in terms of sand having power, solid state physics, that's what it is. You put gallium and arsenic pieces together and all of a sudden you have a forbidden zone. Water, the structure of water, how psyche entered matter. I see I gave you that paper last week. That is chapter 7. Chapter 5, on water. And listen, I don't understand what was going on. I am footprints trying to document this moment for the next person listening to me to write their book. Here we are,
Rick. I got an email, and I was talking to Joey, USA Preparedness Instructor Joey.
Oh, isn't he great? He's a great speaker now too. Good for you, Joey.
he was, well, speaking of speakers, he mentioned that he got an advertisement from Menards, which is a big box. We'll call it a home improvement store. You can buy flooring there. You can buy lighting. You can buy plumbing, all kinds of things. It's kind of like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, sort of, combined with a Walmart. That's what it would be like. Well, he received this advertisement for a device that everybody should have, according to the marketeers. And this is a water bottle, so you can bring water with you, and you can hydrate with the water that you carry in this water bottle. It's less than $10, and it has some really wonderful features for the average GDP, the generally dumb public. This water bottle has a Bluetooth communication system built in, and it has a speaker.
Oh, no, man.
I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. So you can from 30 feet away, you can have this water bottle and you can listen to your favorite music from your water bottle, and you can have it's got a USB charging port, so you can charge the rechargeable lithium-ion battery that powers this thing.
GPS and tracking system. It has pictures of you and what you're doing going to the bathroom. It has.
Well,
that's creepy.
All right. Well, here's the question. This is a physics question. Obviously, Joey was kidding me when he said he had to get one, and he just couldn't wait. And I can't think of anybody who would want one of these ridiculous piece of technology to put more radio frequencies in the air.
Oh, stop, man. There's a sucker born every day.
Yeah.
So,
well,
really, man. When you want something like that, you really need to sit back and try to figure out what your life's been all about.
Messed up, absolutely messed up. If anyone who needs one of these has got to sit down and think, as Guineith Isaacs would say, have a think, because it's just beyond dumb. But here's the question. This is the physics question. So we're playing, I don't know, rap. Not me, but, somebody might who wants one of these, playing rap. Can you call it music?
With this water bottle.
Rap noise with this water bottle. Are they imprinting the water with rap or whatever kind of nonsense they're playing?
Of course they are, yes. Of course they are.
And will it affect them when they drink it? Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. And class, I've been thinking about using these water bottles and how destructive they could possibly be. So imagine this. Imagine, someone listening to that country song, the one where the singer says, "My girl left me for her girlfriend, took my dog, my trailer, and my last six-pack. Something depressing like that. And then imprinting that. I couldn't help it.
Oh, you gotta love Nashville. Oh, man.
And imprinting the water with that kind of depression. Now, when you drink that water, Rick, are you inclined to be depressed?
It's like when you say something, I can't do this, it's going through your ears. You're listening to yourself. Water is the way you feed yourself. And so you are whom you feed, but to be more precise, because there's a bunch of different things going on, yeast, mold. And when you put this negative idea in the water that you consume, what happens next is you get candida, and you can smell your armpits. It's an awareness of your body, of the relationship of your thoughts and how they affect placebo and your health. It used to be in medicine, it was only 10%. It was placebo, what you believed happening. Today, it's up to 60%. And you know more about what's going on than your doctor does. Medicine's broken. Now, with that said, here we are at the end of days, with choices. And the choices we make are the wounds we inflict. And the wounds actually can become blessings. Anger, as an example, I can use that and clean my kitchen floor way better than if I had to just clean my kitchen floor. Containerizing the wound is a tool, and that is the concept of altered states of consciousness and how advanced physics will be the study of magic.
I wonder if Benny Hill did something about anger and,
Monty Python, let's go on back down the hill. That's just crazy.
I wonder if I can clean my kitchen floor with anger and a mop better than with just the mop. Yeah. Rick Miller just said that.
It all began when Firesign Theater out of Seattle wrote their first science fiction story. Yeah, everybody's going to get that one eventually. So, with that said, we've been here before, and we have choices, and it's time to get off the couch.
What about frankincense? Is there healing properties to frankincense?
I saw that from Joey. Of course, frankincense and myrrh affect odoriferous molecules that release certain memory things as a time machine. You can use it to reconstruct your memories better than if you were to try to just confabulate, like most of us do.
How about this? Is incense, like the Catholic Church uses, that kind of incense, is that hallucinogenic? Is it hallucinogenic?
It is a brain cell that has no filter between it and the physical world. It comes out through your nose. Your brain is actually sampling. Odoriferous molecules is a geometric thing. And geometry and the sacred geometry elements are one of the reasons that the odoriferous, the smell, it smells something.
I wonder if that's why they use incense before passing the collection plate, so everybody feels good.
There's a lot of reasons that, how did George Carlin put it? God has everything, but he needs more money.
Hey, Rick, it's always wonderful broadcasting with you, and I'm delighted to call you my friend, my dear friend, Dr. Richard Alan Miller. Website, richardalanmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com.